What does independence mean to you? In a world where we can express ourselves freely, are you still searching for where your freedom truly lies? Are we chasing dreams or are we living them? Today's guest is a free spirit who embodies the essence of freedom. Join us as we explore her incredible journey from feeling trapped in a seemingly perfect life to rediscovering her true self. She shares her story of being a teen mom, working tirelessly in the corporate financial industry, navigating a turbulent marriage and divorce, and ultimately setting off on a solo journey across Europe to rediscover and reconnect with her true self. So let's welcome Meg.
Hi, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we are so excited to have you. So tell our audience a bit about yourself.
So you kind of summed it up in the intro. That's the high level version. Obviously, there's a lot deeper and some things we'll get into today. But yeah, I found myself as a 39-year-old woman just feeling stuck in the rat race of life. And this is after years of living in survival mode. So yeah, I was a teen mom, had to grow up really fast, had some experiences in my childhood that I was kicked out of the house at 14. So I had to grow up, I had to get a job, I had to figure out how to survive. So my nervous system was definitely in survival mode for many, many years. I had my beautiful daughter, which changed the trajectory of my world. I would not have it any other way. She allowed me to grow in ways I could not have imagined. But in that, I had to work full time, went to school, got my bachelor's degree, and started climbing the corporate ladder. And I'm very grateful for my career in finance. It was a beautiful experience. I worked with a lot of amazing people. It was a lot of hard work. And she moved out at 18 and never boomeranged back home. So I was there just, at that point I had been married. I'd gone through a pretty difficult divorce. And so it was just me for the first time in my whole life, because she was always my little buddy, going through all the survival modes, the ups and downs of my 20s and my 30s. And I was finally in a position that I decided to take a breath and reassess and look at my life and where I was and decide if that's who I was at that moment. I had never taken those moments before to look around and say, is this what I want? It was always, making sure everyone around me was doing well, making sure everyone was happy. We were doing what everyone wanted to do, and everyone was taken care of. That was kind of my role growing up as well. I'm a recovering people pleaser for sure.
And it's a perfect segue to our curious questions that we want to ask you. So can you share a pivotal moment when you realized you needed to take a drastic change in your life?
So for me, it was kind of a slow progression because I was terrified. To be honest, I was extremely terrified. My daughter moved out, so that was definitely a moment. But it took me 4 years after that to finally quit my job and decide that I wanted to shake everything up and relearn who I was at this new stage in my life. So it was a combination of a lot of different things. I think, like a lot of us, we read a lot of personal growth books and we listen to podcasts. And I did that for years, just collecting knowledge and trying to learn more about myself. But I realized that I wasn't taking any action to make all this knowledge I was gathering applicable to my life. So I would listen to podcasts driving in traffic to and from work every day. And then I realized I was still stuck. I was still doing the same thing every day and feeling very unfulfilled, feeling like, why am I doing this? I did this to provide a life for my daughter, but do I love what I do? Is this what I want to spend my time doing? And so there were a few podcasts I started listening to, and a couple in particular that was solo traveling women that shared their stories. And so those impacted me so much that it was the first, I remember the moment in the car, and I wish I remembered the woman because I don't. But it was on a traveling podcast because I had in my mind, I'd never up to that point traveled pretty much at all. We just didn't have the funds to do that. But then I was in a position to start to explore. So it was a one woman story, and she talked about pretty much what I did, shaking things up, quitting her job, deciding to travel and explore herself. And it just stuck in me. And then for about a year in my mind, I was planning it. And I was like, okay, I'm saving, I'm stockpiling, money so I can do this. I'm going to plan ahead. I'm not like a go in the office and quit kind of girl. I'm like, all right, I need to have a forward thinking plan. So it was in my mind for a year until I actually said the words out loud to somebody. And I remember that moment so strongly too, because speaking the words out loud was like, that was a pivotal moment. It was all inside for so long. And then when I said it, I shared it with a friend, and it came out, and she was like, what? You're crazy. And I was like, no, I'm doing this. I'm quitting. I'm going to go explore. I'm going to find what drives me. So many little mini moments to answer your question there. But a lot of things that I slowed down and listened to my intuition, and I finally got there.
Wow, that's beautiful. The way you were able to connect with your intuition and parts of yourself that really wants to do that journey, and then saying it out loud. It's like the confirmation of this is really what I want to do, and hearing it say it yourself sounds like it's the thing that you really needed to hear, because it landed really well in your heart that this is the journey, the next journey you're about to embark on.
Know how powerful words are. So the second the words were spoken into the universe, I was like, oh, I guess this is happening.
So what was the most surprising thing you learned about yourself during the beginning of your travels?
So many things. That's such a hard question, but I think the biggest thing I learned about myself is that I love tomatoes, which seems crazy, but let me tell you why that was so impactful to me. I had spent my life being a people pleaser, doing, making sure we had the food my daughter liked, or the food my husband liked, or we were doing the activities that everyone around me wanted to do. That was kind of my role I have 4 siblings, and that was my role growing up. And I just kept on in that role into my adult life. And so I remember going to, it was actually Italy, which was my second country, but I went to Italy, and we never had tomatoes in my house because my husband hated them. I don't know why. That's a strong feeling for tomatoes, but he hated them. And my daughter didn't like them. So I never bought a tomato. A tomato never entered our house, which seems silly. But I was like, why would I buy something that no one else in the house is going to eat except me? That felt selfish to me as a mom, which is pretty profound if you really dig deeper into it and think about it. So anyway, I was in Italy, and I got a caprese salad with the tomatoes. And I was like, do I like tomatoes? I don't even know. I haven't tried a tomato since I was a teenager. And I started eating that tomato, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't just like tomatoes, I love tomatoes. And so for me, that was such a metaphor for everything that I was doing that year and now beyond, of checking in with myself. What do I like to do? What do I enjoy spending my time doing? I realized I love spending hours in art museums. Never did that before because people around me didn't enjoy that. So that was my first like tester of there's so much more for you to explore within yourself. Eat the tomato.
And it's all about knowing who you are, what you like. And you're so right. As a mom, we kind of get so stuck into what our kids want. What do they like? And oh, it's hard work. Why should I just buy something that I'm gonna eat? But it is so powerful what you shared. So thank you for sharing that with us. So while you lived a life of independence on your own terms, we're curious to know, is there an end goal? Or is it all about just living in the moment and just going with the flow?
A little bit of both, I would say. I think that one of the biggest things, and this is also kind of to your last question, but I learned how to be here now in the present moment. I learned how to not always be stressing about what's coming next. And so that's definitely how I live my life now. And it's brought me so much peace. I lived in this kind of autopilot stress world because society tells us that if we're stressed, that means we're being productive. That means we're busy. That means we're kicking ass at the mom thing and the corporate thing and all the roles that we have to juggle. If we feel stressed and we run around saying we're busy, well, then we're winning. We're doing a good job. And so it took me a long time to realize that stress literally is a mental choice. And the more that you allow yourself to come back to the present moment and enjoy where you're at now, the more peaceful and enjoyable life you can lead. And so to answer your question, I would say my biggest end goal in life is to continue to kind of evaluate where I'm at and intentionally evolve into the person I'm supposed to be, because I'm not done yet. None of us are done yet, right? And so for me, I just really feel like every day is a new day to discover who I want to be. So the end goal is just to continue to challenge myself, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and intentionally evolve.
I totally agree with that. And what I know about you is that you are a person who listened to the beat of your heart. And that it takes courage to really slow down and listen to your intentions about how you want to live your life. So it's we are programmed, like what you said with the stress thing. We are programmed as a young age that we have to strive, we have to keep moving, and we have to keep achieving. And it sounds like the way you're doing now, it's more about aligning your heart, your mind, and your soul, and moving towards a more meaningful and fulfilling life that is dictated by your heart rather than the society. If there is someone out there that's going through the same thing as, like, what would you have some advice for those people who might be going?
Slow down. I always say this to everyone I talk to, because I feel like my story sounds like, because this is how I did it, that you have to wait for your kids to move out in order to find this peace. That's how I did it. I now, in hindsight, know that I could have done it while I was parenting. And while, I just did not take the time to slow down. So part of my mission is to help women to find that peace. You don't have to quit your job and move across the world and not have your kids around anymore in order to feel this. That is fortunately and unfortunately how I did it. And I think I wasted a lot of years not realizing that being in the present moment can shift everything. So my advice would be and is to women that I talk to and share with, that take time for yourself. It's okay. We don't have to have this mom guilt. It's all right to do things that are just for you. It's all right to learn if you like tomatoes. It's all right to, the biggest thing that actually helped me was to take myself on little mini dates, which is terrifying. And I've talked to like a lot of my girlfriends. I'm like, have you ever gone to dinner by yourself? Have you ever gone to a movie by yourself? And you know, inevitably, most women don't do this because, for one, well, we don't want to spend money if we're not enjoying it with someone else. We don't want to take time away from our spouses or our partners or our kids or our work, you know. So choosing to take a moment to go on a little mini date with yourself really can open up some doors, because it gives you a moment to be quiet. It gives you a moment to start to explore the things you enjoy. I remember I took myself on right before I left for Europe, because I had not done a lot of that before I even left. And I was like, if I'm going to spend a whole year alone, I've never really been alone before, I better test this out. So I took a little day trip up to Sedona. So I drove in the car, and I remember I didn't turn on any music, no podcasts, and I was just there with my thoughts, which was terrifying, honestly. And drove up, and I spent the day. I went on a little hike. I went and walked through shops, and it was kind of, it was really eye-opening, the things that I chose to sit and explore longer, because I hadn't had a lot of that time alone. So that would be my first tip, is to definitely start spending time alone and decide what you like without the outside influences of all the beautiful people in your life, but decide for yourself what you enjoy, and then explore yourself on a deeper level. So journaling, huge. I'm not a huge writer, so a lot of times I do voice memos, or I do even video diaries, because it just seems to be quicker. I can get out what I want to say, but it allows you to start to have dialogue with yourself, which can really help you grow. And then, of course, I think if you want to take it another level, working with a coach is great, because we're able to ask questions that can shift your perspective or get you to dig a little deeper and see parts of yourself you might not otherwise see.
Speaking of life coaching, and that is your practice right now. So you're a full-time coach. So how did that adventure starts for you? Because you were in finance for a long time, and then a nomad coach. So how did that come about for you?
So I was in finance for 19 years before I quit and decided to take an adult gap year. And so in that adult gap year, that's what I like to call it, because I didn't get that in my 20s. You know, a lot of people did that pre-kids. I've always lived my life on reverse, is what I like to say. So I did the reverse end of it, took an adult gap year. And in that year, I did all these things that I was explaining to you. I did a lot of soul searching, a lot of getting to know myself, a lot of digging deeper. And through that work, I found coaching. And I realized that as I thought about my whole life, I was very, very interested in psychology in college. In fact, I tried to go and change my major from business to psychology. And I went into the counselor because I took my first psych class, and I loved it. And I went into the counselor's office, and I'm like, I want to change my major. And I vividly remember she took out 2 pieces of paper and put them in front of me. And she says, this is what a business degree will make you over your working lifetime. And this is what a psychology degree will make you. And at that time, I had a 1-year-old, 2-year-old maybe. And I was like, you know, I gotta go where the money is. And so that shifted the direction of my life. Now in finance, I did a lot of work specifically with women, and that's who I coach. I exclusively coach women, and women going through life transitions and things. But in finance, I worked a lot with divorced women and helping them feel confident to ask questions and to understand their finances. And then I worked with a group within our organization that we started called Women in Wealth. And what we would do is put on educational presentations and pretty much coach women to ask questions and feel comfortable and get really involved with their finances. So as I kind of looked back on what drives me, what lights me up, what makes me feel really good, it all started to align, and it led me straight to coaching, which I absolutely love. Will never stop.
So it's like a full circle for you, right? So
Full circle.
so it just went back to what you're meant to do and what you're really what your heart really wants to do. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a beautiful journey. And while we come to a close in today's podcast as well, let's make it more fun. So we always close it with our guest with a rapid fire round. So are you ready, Meg?
Okay. I'll try to be quick. I'm kind of long-winded, so I'll try to keep them short.
Keep it short. Okay.
Okay.
If you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would it be?
Well, Argentina's next on my list, but I actually would say Bali because I've just always wanted to go there, and but I can't go right now because of the time difference with my business. But I think I'd say Bali. I want to see the beaches and surf and do all those fun things.
What's one item you can't travel without?
Okay, this is a weird one. A deck of cards, a deck of playing cards. I've had a deck of cards in my backpack for 5 years. It's come everywhere with me. I would say pictures of my daughter, but phone, computer, obviously, but deck of cards helps me feel grounded in a way. I grew up and my grandma always taught us cards. We played cards with her. I find that like when I meet people, we'll play a quick game of cards, and it's a fast little fun connection. So yeah, a deck of cards.
But it's interesting.
It's a weird one.
Yeah, but I love it. I love it. It really helps other people think, okay, what could be one interesting thing that's for me that I can carry, right? Apart from phones and pens and all sort of boring stuff.
Yes.
Most memorable person you've met on your travels?
Well, this one's so hard. This one's really, really difficult because I have met so many incredible people. And once you start traveling, you really realize that you can meet someone for 5 minutes and they can impact you. You could meet someone that you're friends with forever. One main friendship that I met an Irish woman in Italy, and we connected in Italy. So much fun. I then went to Spain, and so she traveled to Spain to visit me. So we reconnected there. And then I was going to London where she lived, and she actually helped me find a flat in Westminster. So I stayed there, and then she's from Ireland. So then I went to Ireland, and she had a house on the coast that she let me stay in. And so it was this weird, like, to meet an Irish woman in Italy who lived in London, who, it was just all these combinations, but she's a lifelong friend. So that was an amazing friendship, but so many along the way. Probably the biggest one though is myself, meeting myself for the first time. Yeah. The real me. And my daughter's even told me, she's like, Mom, I feel like I am seeing you. Like you're just you now. Like she sees it. And that makes me proud to show her that.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. What is share a scary story or a travel moment that now seems hilarious in hindsight?
So to be honest, I have not had a lot of scary situations, knock on wood. I'm very vigilant. I'm very careful. I do my research and stuff. I had one time that I felt like scared. I had gone to Verona, Italy, and I realized in my travels how much I love performing arts. So everywhere I went, I would go to a show, a play, an opera. So in Verona, Italy, I went to an opera, and it was amazing in this Coliseum, but it didn't end till like 1 a.m. So I get out at 1 a.m. and I'm trying to go back to my Airbnb, and I made sure there was a bus that could get me there. So I go and I get on the bus. I make sure I'm going on the right direction of the road. So I get on the bus headed to my Airbnb, and the bus turns around and starts going the other direction. So I'm looking on my Google Maps and I'm watching it getting farther and farther away from my Airbnb. And I go up to the bus driver and I'm like, why'd you turn around? Like, we're going, and he goes, oh, I'm so sorry, this late. That's what we do. So why don't I drop you off at the next stop and just cross the street? Another bus will be there in 10 minutes to get you. Great. Well, it's, 1:30 in the morning at this point. So I get off the bus. He drops me off. There's no one around. It's like in this neighborhood, there's not a soul. I feel safe when there's people around. If there's not people around, that's when I get scared. So I wait a really long time. Bus never comes. So long story short, I end up walking just towards my Airbnb because there's no bus, there's not a person in sight. And I'm like, I just got to find a taxi or do something. So I just keep walking, walking, walking. And finally, I see a bus coming the other direction. So I run across the street and I go over to the other stop. And the guy opens the door, and it's the same bus driver. And he opens the door and he looks at me and his eyes get really big. And he's like, you're still out here? And I said, yeah, I've been walking for an hour. And I was, really far. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, he had thought a bus was coming. It wasn't. Anyway, so I ended up, he was almost to my stop at that point. So I could have sat on the bus, looped all the way around and ended up, but that was probably the scariest feeling. But I did have my flashlight and I had a little stun gun with me because I always travel with safety. But, me and the bus driver had a big laugh about how I did that. He felt so bad.
Wow.
Wow, what a story.
You're very brave. So brave. What are your top two most challenging experience as you go into this journey?
Living a minimal life has been a big shift. I spent so many years, filling up the house, getting the cars, doing all the things. And I have very much downsized. So I pretty much live, I have some stuff in storage, but not much, a lot of keepsakes, but I pretty much live with my suitcase and a backpack. And so learning how to adapt is freeing, yet it's been a big shift in lifestyle.
Wow.
Yeah.
We talk about detachment to material things and possessions, right? So
definitely.
Here's the perfect example.
Yeah, there's so much to learn. Oh my God, we can talk for hours. I love, love, love hearing your story. But as everything else in the world, good things comes to an end. But we would love to have you back again. But we just want to thank you so much for really sharing your incredible story and your journey with us today. Your story is truly, truly inspiring. And I hope that, whoever is watching and listening to this, that, they take the what resonates with them and what is inspiring and use that to meet their own parts of themselves to be courageous and open up some new wisdom within them. So where can they find you, Meg?
So getlostwithmeg.com. My business is called Get Lost with Meg because obviously in my journey, you've got to get lost and be open-minded to be able to truly find yourself. So you can go to getlostwithmeg.com. I do one-on-one coaching, group coaching. I do live or online workshops, as well as public speaking to organizations and things. So if anyone's curious, I'd love to chat with you.
And you're also on Instagram, right?
I am on Instagram at Get Lost with Meg.
But I must say, if nothing else, I just listening to you, I feel that I am in touch with my brave part. Just listening to you, it's so special. It's beautiful. So thank you for bringing all your parts and allowing us to see you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
And also, we'd like to invite everyone listening to join HeartSpace. It's a community where we can share perspectives, learn from one another, and empower each other to grow in a supportive and non-judgmental space. So again, we'll put the link in the description below. So for now, thank you everyone for watching and for being a part of this podcast.
Thank you
thanks
guys.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.